we were hiring some new people at work, and I thought, I'm teaching these people the same thing over and over again. Like, what if I just film it? My manager was not on board. I went a little rogue. I'm not going to lie. I went a little rogue, and I was like, no, we're doing this. In my mind, I was like, it's a genius idea. Like, I could not drop it. Like, I was too attached. So I bought editing software and tried to get it expensed through the company. And my manager was so mad that I was going to follow through with this idea. He still signed it. I still got the company to pay for it. And I felt horrible. I cried on the way home because he yelled at me, like, what do you think you're doing? You have no authority to do this. And I was just like, no. I believed in my idea. And so I filmed all these training videos. And then
welcome back to the Fresh Engineer podcast, where fresh engineers share their stories. I'm your host and mechanical engineer, Anna Reich, and in today's episode, I'm talking to Liz Rowe, who's a mechanical engineer turned self-taught data science manager working at Intel in Oregon in the United States. She also runs a YouTube channel where she reviews software products with over 3,000 subscribers, which is actually how I know her, because I randomly found her channel over a year ago and I started watching her videos and leaving comments. At some point, she invited me onto her Discord server, and that's how we became friends. In our conversation, we talk about why you should give yourself more homework if you want to graduate top of your engineering class, why you should focus on the manager and not the company when picking a job, how she jumped 5 career levels from estimating engineer to regional director by strategically switching companies, how she taught herself how to code and that led to her being offered a job as data science manager at Intel, and how having a YouTube channel has opened doors for her engineering career she never would have imagined. So I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. Welcome, Liz. How are you?
Good. I'm actually really excited about this one because not like every day where you get to chat with another female mechanical engineer. So I like it.
True.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm super pumped. Jumping right in, I'd love to start all the way at the beginning of Liz. Where are you from?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds kind of weird, but okay. Where are you from? Where did you grow up and what were you like as a kid?
So I'm like slightly north of Portland, Oregon. So Portland, Oregon is known for being like the home of the weirdos. So it's very known for having big personalities, craft beer, food, coffee, but it's in the Pacific Northwest, very rainy. It's kind of like where Twilight was filmed, if you've seen that series and that kind of stuff.
I have, yeah.
And so I lived slightly north of it, out in kind of a suburb area, so I don't live in the city. And I grew up here, I've been in Vancouver, Washington my whole life, but I went to school in Portland. So Portland, I just say, because it's a big city, so I say that's where I'm from. Growing up as a kid, I was a very misbehaved child, which comes as a surprise for a lot of people. But when I was a kid, I just, for some reason, with the authority and school and the structure of like, here, you take your little worksheets and go work in your corner, just did not work well for me. So I tended to get in a lot of trouble just because mainly I was bored. And then as a kid, I didn't really read a lot of normal kid books. I liked encyclopedias. So I would read books about like volcanoes, frogs, very nonfiction, which is so funny because now I completely exclusively read nonfiction. So I think that was a trend. But even as a kid, I always wanted to go into science, math. I didn't quite understand what an engineer was. But if you would have saw me as a kid, you'd have been like, oh yeah, she's definitely an engineer. So that's kind of like not completely unexpected if you saw me growing up.
So then how did you decide to study mechanical engineering and also where to study, which university to go to?
Yeah, when I was picking colleges, I was trying to go to the cheapest, which if you know where I went, which is University of Portland, it is not a cheap school. It's a private Catholic university and it's expensive because private schools are more expensive than state schools in the US. But I had a lot of scholarship there. And so it ended up being cheaper. And then I also realized that I didn't have to pay to be in a dorm. I didn't have a lot of money. So I needed to stay at my house with my parents and drive in every day. So I tried to go like the cheapest route and that ended up working out for me. The other thing I liked about the school is it was very academic focused. So there was no partying. It was like very religious school, all about academic, probably like 30 students to a class. You weren't in lectures of like 300 plus people. And then as far as picking the engineering degree, I will say, I wish it was a little bit more elegant, but I knew I wanted to try engineering because I knew I would regret it if I didn't. But I didn't think I was smart enough. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll go into engineering. We can fail out, but at least I can say I tried. And I actually did really well. I don't know why I thought that I would fail out because it has such like a stigma almost to it where it's so hard and you're going to fail out and it's awful and heavy in math. But when I was choosing choosing it, like the first couple weeks, you have to declare what type of engineering. So there's only 4 types at this school. There was civil, mechanical, electrical, and computer science. And so I had the degree plans, so I could see my future in front of me. And I'm like, I don't know how to code. So I threw that one out. And then I was like, electrical, I couldn't even read the names. They're like embedded systems. Like, I have literally no idea what that means. So I threw that one out. And then civil was like steel trusses, bridges, and like soil dynamics was a class. I'm like, I'm not studying soil. Threw that out. So then I ended up, I was like, I only have one left. So mechanical has to work, which I was mainly excited because I saw thermodynamics and I thought, I'm going to blow some stuff up. We're going to do cool stuff. Little did I know there was absolutely no blowing anything up in thermodynamics. It's just math. So that's how I picked the degree, which is like, it's kind of a funny story, but at the same time, I wish that I had a plan, but I didn't. I just went with my gut and picked one and went along with it. And it worked out. So no regrets.
I mean, honestly, that's how I picked as well. So
yeah, right.
It's like, I mean, in my case, even just like, I'll just go with the biggest one. It's popular, so it must be good.
Yes.
But which in Germany, mechanical engineering is the biggest one by far.
I think that's the same here as well. Mm-hmm. It had the biggest class out of all the 4 classes of engineers. Yeah.
What advice would you give to a high school student who's thinking of studying engineering or maybe even mechanical engineering, but isn't sure if it's the right career for them?
I would say with mechanical engineering, I think of it like the Swiss Army knife of engineering, okay? Because you're going to touch everything. You take a little computer science, you take a little circuits, which is in, electrical engineering. You take a lot of classes with the civil engineers. You're going to touch every type of engineering. And so when I went out into the workforce, I started seeing mechanical engineers in weird positions. Like they could take an electrical position. They could take a CS position. Because it's so broad, you can really go into any industry and do anything. So that's why I'm like, if you're not sure, mechanical is a great one because you can kind of flex and fake your way into another type of engineering because mechanical is just so broad. So that's my advice. If you don't know, this one's a really good one. There's lots of jobs. You can do it literally anything.
What was your experience studying mechanical engineering? Was it any different from what you had expected?
I knew going in, engineering was going to be rough. And I knew it was going to be like math heavy. And so I think there's really no sugarcoating it. It's a hard major. Okay. You're not going to be like just floating through and coasting through. So just if you go into that with the right expectations to know that like you're going to be studying every day, you're going to be doing really hard math, you'll be fine. But if you have different expectations, you think you're just going to fly right through it, just like you did in high school, like it's significantly different than high school. So you have to put in more time, more effort. But if you go into it knowing that, you'll be fine. You just have to like kind of mend your expectations of the degree.
What advice would you give a fresh engineering student who's, in the first week of their studies, how to make it through these hard studies?
My biggest thing that I struggled with in college or the engineering degree was the tests. I don't know if that was similar for you, but test taking and homework was the hardest part. That's what makes it hard. The test is getting ready for your test. So the advice I have for test taking, which is only going to apply if you're getting an engineering degree, right? This isn't outside of engineering degree, but I would, they assign you homework problems, right? And they say, do problems 1 through 20 and do the evens, right? Do the odds, do every single problem in that book. So my advice is like, do every single problem, go above and beyond. If they assign you a certain amount of homework, give yourself more homework. And then also read the chapters for the lectures because they'll make 10,000 times more sense because that professor's been teaching the same subject every year. They don't know what it's like to be a beginner. So sometimes it's really nice to just, do a skim through the chapter before you jump into the course or the lecture of the course each week. I know that's extreme, right? Because I'm telling you basically, engineering's not hard enough. You got to make it harder by doing more homework and more lectures. But that's if you want to do very well. If you want to do okay, just do the homework and study for the test, whatever. But I was on the mission of like, no, I'm graduating number 1. We're not doing a number 2. We're not doing number 3. So I kind of went above and beyond and that helped me. I don't know if it helped me in real life because the industry is just so different than college, but I did graduate very well, like very high up. So that's my advice. If you really care about your GPA or how you're graded or your marks or however they call them different in other countries, grade levels, right? I don't know. Are you guys on like a grading scale A through F?
I mean, we have a very weird grading scale.
Oh yeah. We won't get into that.
We have 1 to 5 and 1 is the best.
No, well, we like that. Yeah, ours is like A through F and it's a GPA. So it all like grades up to like, I think the best GPA is like 4.0. So I graduated with like a 3.57 or no, 3.97. Close. We're very close to your 4, So not perfect, but close.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want a 3.97, then follow your advice.
Yeah. If you want to just be average, then you just got to do the homework and study and don't fall behind.
Yeah. Falling behind is deadly.
Oh yeah. There's no recovering.
I'd love to talk about your first job out of university. So you started working as an estimating engineer. What did you do, or what was it like for you to look for your first job, and how did you decide what to do?
Well, the thing with the first jobs is you have to like balance between overthinking it and underthinking it, because you can overthink all day and be like, oh, I want to have the perfect job at the perfect industry and the perfect manager. And then you can also underthink it and be like, I just need a job. Just give me anything. So it's a mix. And so the two things I say to look for anyone who's looking for a job is, one, be careful what industry you start in, because it will probably be the industry you'll be in for a very long time. So right now I've been in the semiconductor industry, right? So I've taken on different roles, different companies, but they're all within the same industry. So you can get away with kind of jumping around because you're in the same industry. And that's a huge advantage thinking about it ahead of time, because I kind of started in the construction industry along with semiconductor, right? So then I realized, oh, to get out of construction, it's very difficult. You almost have to like go backwards. So just be careful what industry you start in if you wanted to move an industry later on. It takes a little bit more navigating. And then the second thing that I swear by is focus on the manager. It doesn't matter about the company. Company doesn't matter. They're not really like the company itself. There's going to be people within, and your manager is going to have the most impact on your day-to-day life, right? This is somebody you're working with every day, 8 hours a day. They tell you what to do. They give you feedback, and you don't want to be with a horrific manager. So my first job, I had a really, really terrible manager, and I did not know it because it was my first job. And when I say that person shattered my self-esteem day in, day out, like crying after work, just feeling really insecure about my abilities. And, I'm graduating top of the class, and I come in the industry and this person just wrecked everything. And I didn't really get it. But then after I got, a couple newer managers later on, that I should have focused on the manager, because now I have a really awesome manager who like believes in me, gives me great feedback. The way they give you feedback is very important. And when I go into jobs, I ask, how do you give feedback? Because if they use shaming tactics, I'm not into it. If they give you actually good, solid advice and they're supportive, great. But sometimes you have managers who give you very, very shaming like tactics, like having you read things out loud in front of your coworkers. I've had that. And it's just like demeaning stuff, just to like make you feel like crappy about yourself in effort that you will change it. That's not the way I motivate. So just knowing yourself and then trying to find a good manager in the right industry will really like set you up for success.
And what does an estimating engineer do?
Well, so estimating engineers, right? I had no idea they exist. I didn't even know they were a thing. Okay. When I entered the workforce, I'm thinking mechanical engineers, we maybe design things. I'm not entirely sure. I like thermodynamics. I like heat transfer. Maybe I was going to go into physical sciences. And estimating engineer was something they kind of were like, oh, this would be a good fit for you. And at the time, I was like, okay, it seems interesting. What it is you basically get a set of construction drawings or blueprints, right? So, that CAD work and stuff, you can put them into blueprints and of a layout of a building, and you basically count everything in the building and apply a price to it. Now, that sounds very tedious and boring, but there is so much to learn. And I wanted a job where I could like learn for years, right? I didn't want to do the same thing every day. So you have to be able to understand, a generator. You have to understand wiring and sizing of wiring. You have to understand cooling towers, pumps, even just the walls, even paint on the walls. Everything has a price. And so every morning I had this thing where I would wake up and I would watch like 3 videos on 3 things that I didn't understand very well, like whether it was PLCs or a type of drywall or just like literally anything, controls. How does a temperature detector work? Just like miscellaneous stuff like that, because every single thing was important. I mean, to build an entire building, you have to do everything: electrical, mechanical, computer science is even there. You got to program things, got to put up walls. So there was just a lot to learn. And that's why I liked that job. But essentially, you're just counting things and applying prices. There's a lot of coloring, just to color coordinate things. I used to tell people, I'm like, it's like kindergarten. You just count and color all day long.
Yeah. Also, before I started working, I had no idea that pricing things is really difficult and really tedious.
They don't talk about cost at all in engineering. We're like, oh, design it. They don't talk about like the cost impacts of design. It's baffling.
I agree. It's like, oh, budget doesn't exist. It's unlimited always.
Exactly. I don't know why they do that. Because now it's super important. And now companies will pay you a lot of money to estimate how much projects cost before they go and invest that money. So it's a good field.
Yeah. And even every project, like the decisions are based on cost.
Exactly.
You need to defend your projects based on cost. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's just glossed over in college. And there's There's no class on it. No, not even a consideration.
Yeah, so true. So I saw that you made some career moves within, estimating engineering. That's quite impressive. And I'd love for you to take me through how you went from estimating engineer you were at JE Dunn Construction, and then senior cost manager, and then regional director at Cunning Group.
Yeah. So essentially, when you're working, right, when you're in the industry, you start to realize what other companies have the same positions, who are hiring for the same position. And getting this structure down is actually really hard because at JE Dunn, they're called estimating engineer 1, estimating engineer 2, and then senior estimating engineer. But at a cost consultancy company, which is it's the same exact job, they call them cost manager, junior cost manager, senior cost manager. So it's hard to tell. They're not always a one-to-one, but you can kind of start to tell, okay, where do I want to be? And then you see, oh, they're calling them, senior cost manager. I would love to be that high up and do a couple jumps, where if I stayed at JE Dunn, it was like I'd have to go through 1, 2, and then senior, and then get to a manager, estimating manager 1, estimating manager 2, and then senior estimating manager. So I jumped 5 promotion levels by going from one job to another, by meeting some other cost managers, seeing the industry and seeing how I compared to them. So I kind of prepared for that big jump. I knew I wanted to make a big move, and I had to think, okay, one, am I qualified? So I had to go work. So I worked with a lot of people, and that helped me go, okay, that person's a senior cost manager, I could be a senior cost manager. So you kind of have to scope out your competition and see okay, are you actually qualified? Because if I'm confident enough, then in the interview, I'll come across this isn't an issue. Why are we even discussing the fact that you don't think I'm qualified? So you have to believe in yourself first before you can pull off some of these big jumps. And then once I was in senior cost management, you're higher up, your decisions kind of start to be seen. And that's how I ended up becoming the regional director. Is there was some movement, somebody quit, and they were like, who's going to fill the job? And I had worked, in the industry before, right, for several years, and I was doing very well in my current job, and it just made sense. It just kind of happened like that. Opportunities kind of just come out of nowhere sometimes. So that second one, I wasn't really prepared for. It wasn't gaming, except for when that person did leave. I wanted their job. Don't get me wrong. I was prepping after that, but it was a very quick jump. I think I was 5 months into a senior cost manager before I took on a director role. But I knew I was ready because, again, you start to see the other regional directors. And I'm like, I actually could get down to the trench level, in the trenches where you're actually doing the calculations. And a lot of these people, there was a disconnect because they'd been so long since they had estimated and were doing the day-to-day work. They were just managing. So I felt like I almost had an advantage of being so close. I could do any job, from the bottom job, right? The lowest qualified job, the top of anything in estimating. So I felt like I knew it like the back of my hand, and that sell it. But you have to sell yourself, They don't just come to you and say, hey, do you want to be a director? No, you have to say, I'm the best person for this job. This is why, X, Y, Z, and you got to walk them through it. So you have to learn how to sell if you want to skyrocket. But a lot of moving between companies, it's very hard to just get back-to-back promotions at a company. It's hard to justify it. It's usually every couple of years you get up for promotion if you're really good. So you can make a better financial move if you switch companies, which sucks because you might really want to stay at one company, but it is what it is.
Now, obviously, since then, you've made a huge career move, which I really want to get into. But for that, I'd love to talk about your YouTube business, because I feel like the two might be related on your move. And you started your YouTube channel in 2020. How did you get the idea to do that, and why did you decide to then go for it?
Yeah, so I was working estimating engineer 1. I think I was just being promoted to a 2, and we were hiring some new people at work at JE Dunn, and I thought, well, I'm teaching these people the same thing over and over again. What if I just film it? My manager was not on board. I went a little rogue. I'm not going to lie. I went a little rogue, and I was like, no, we're doing this. In my mind, I was like, it's a genius idea. I could not drop it. I was too attached. So I bought editing software and tried to get it expensed through the company. And my manager was so mad that I was going to follow through with this idea. And he still signed it. I still got the company to pay for it. And I felt horrible. I cried on the way home because he yelled at me, what do you think you're doing? You have no authority to do this. And I was just like, no. I believed in my idea. And so I filmed all these training videos. And then I got so much credit at work from other people, and it drove my boss crazy. And then eventually my boss was like, oh, it was our idea on the way. the whole time. I'm like, no. I cried. You made me feel so bad. And you made it feel like it was such a dumb idea. But I loved filming the videos. So I filmed the videos and then people would come and they'd watch them. And I got good feedback. And now I actually have heard now that he has started filming more since I left. And I'm just like, I knew that was a good idea. So you got to believe in your ideas. I thought, oh, you know what? I should make YouTube videos. Like, why don't I put some of this on YouTube? I can't necessarily put the work stuff on YouTube, but similar stuff, sharing your screen, just recording a video. So that's how I got into it. And it was really just a side thing. I didn't have a lot of time. So in the beginning, I still have all my videos from the very beginning. It was like once every couple months. They were terrible. I had a laptop that had the little webcam built in. It wasn't even an external webcam. So we've come a long way, but that's how I ended up getting started.
Cool. And in your own words, what is your channel about and why does this topic matter to you?
Yeah, well, it's changed a little bit. It started out just kind of miscellaneous stuff, because just stuff I was interested in, just like Notion tutorials, and then it went into business and then I talked about coding. But now I've gotten I have a path that I like. And so right now it's all about software tools. Mainly, I get really passionate about it because there's nothing worse than like going through about your day-to-day life, right? And then somebody's like, well, why aren't you using this tool? Does it automatically? And you pay $10. And you're like, crap, I wish I would have found that tool like 3 years ago and saved all that time and money. So that's why I like reviewing just miscellaneous tools. And some of them are duds, but some of them are really cool. And I'm like, dang, this is a cool tool. So I like to do that. And I want my channel to almost be a place hub where somebody is just subscribed and then miscellaneous software comes up. They can watch one, they can go, oh, that's not for me. Yes, that's for me, blah. And it keeps you in the loop of what is going on and what's being used in the industry. So that's kind of like my idea for the channel right now. It's like focusing mostly on software. But again, it's me talking about software. So it's my name, it's not like Software with Liz or something, but I just keep it my name because in case I want to change it,
Yeah, it's definitely my go-to now for all kinds of software. I like look first if you have a video on it and then then I go elsewhere if you don't.
Well, I try to keep it like realistic, I guess. Like I'll watch, because I watch some people's tutorials and I'm like, oh, it sounds so professional. Like it sounds like too rehearsed, or they're doing way too much with it. Like I just need a basic, just get me up and running, basic 10 minutes. I don't need like a deep dive into how the API works for the software. Like, I just give me the basics. And so that's kind of what I go for. And dumbing it down, I like to dumb it down to like a third grader level, because I would watch these videos and be like, oh my gosh, like they're talking about API. What the heck's an API? And then you go in where I'm more like, this is a coding bridge. Think of it like a bridge, like I'm using it like analogies because I know what it's like freaking lost in these tutorials. So that's kind of my spin on it, at least.
I love that. So you've built the channel into a super impressive business. What are 3 actions you've taken with your business that have been the most impactful?
I'd say the first one, which I think everyone struggles with, is letting people see that you're trying. It's the hardest hurdle to get over, because like it's your worst fear. You don't want people to like think, oh, who does she think she is, like posting about this, look at her trying to make something of herself. Like you almost feel embarrassed. You're like, who am I thinking that like anyone wants to watch me? But you have to get over that. A lot of people talk about it, about how hard it is past your friends and family just judging and seeing you put yourself out there. But that's the number one thing. If you want to do anything in life, you have to get over it. You just have to not care. You have to show your work and not care that people are going to see you trying. Yes, you're trying. I'm trying to build a YouTube channel. I want more subscribers. Thank you. Sorry, move on. So that's the first thing. A couple things that are more actionable is the first one would be hiring an editor. It was a game changer. Now, I used my own money in the beginning and that hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it hurts to like spend my money on an editor, especially if my editor's expensive. Like, $1,500 a month is not cheap. So I would put together some money, hire for like a month, and then I would cancel. Like it was kind of ridiculous at first. Eventually the business started paying for it, which is much nicer. But when I tell you, it was a game changer because I could just focus on scripting and filming thumbnails, which is already a lot. 3 people's jobs right there. So getting rid of the editing piece was just so nice, because now I have a routine where I just have to review the video. I don't have to spend hours and hours. I can just focus on content and filming, then sending it off to her. So huge difference. I don't think people get how big of a difference that makes on your like life work balance. The other thing that I like to do that I tell everyone is to batch. What I mean by that is when I film my videos or script my videos, I script 4 or 5 of them. And then once I have 4 or 5 that are ready to film, then I put them in a ready to film column, like a Kanban board on Notion. And then I will batch film them 5 in a row, just pound them out. And then I'll batch make the thumbnails, and if you do the similar task, you almost group them by task, saying, okay, I'm going to script here, script all of them, and then I'm going to film, and I'm going to do the thumbnails. Yes, it gets a little boring, but it's very efficient. So like the other weekend, I batched like four videos. We're editing them right now, and then I'll make the thumbnails for the 4 videos. I just prefer it that way. It feels efficient. I can produce a ton of content by batching. So that's another thing that like, don't just film your video, then make the thumbnail, and just do one and then go back to the next video. I feel like that's just slightly inefficient.
Yeah. What are your next goals or plans for your business?
Well, what I'm focusing on this year and the next couple of years, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break. Sometimes I can get upset that I'm like, why am I not quitting my job yet? Why am I not super successful? But I'm going to give myself a little bit of break on that. I'm going to keep my job for at least a couple more years before I like kind of dive into the deep end. But I'm experimenting with different streams of revenue or sources of revenue, because right now, or in the beginning, it was mainly just affiliates, like random. It's just luck of the draw, which affiliates get clicked in your videos. And it just feels very lucky. And I don't like that. So I just want to start building a couple more sources of revenue and try to experiment. So I'm trying online courses, and I'm going to try a couple sponsorship deals and see if like, is it awful? Like, do I want to continue? And then I'm also trying consulting, which is new for me. I've never really done like freelance consulting, but I'm just trying to get some income and get some ideas flowing of like, maybe I can, diversify the income a little bit. So it's not just ad revenue and affiliates. And I'm not like heavily reliant on those things. So that's kind of my focus for the next few years, business wise, is getting that cash flow down, because it's make or break for the business. Honestly, at the end of the day, you have to make money if you're a business.
Yeah, and the consulting you do is engineering consulting, right?
Yeah, I do software consulting, which is kind of fun because it relates to the software channel, right? So a lot of the times, if I come across a new software through consulting, I'll do videos on it for the YouTube. Or if they look like they need a software, I'll reference my YouTube videos and say, look, does this look interesting? Maybe we could try something like this. I experimented, here's a link. So it's almost full circle. And it also impacts my work as well. Like my day-to-day job at Intel, I'll use the tools that I find on the YouTube channel and be like, we should use this here, so it's weird, like full circle business consulting, YouTube and my day job.
Do you have any advice for engineers looking to start a side hustle? So maybe both consulting or something similar, or freelancing, or also YouTube, or something in the digital place?
I would say, just if you're going to start a YouTube channel, I would say there are other advantages besides the money, and focus on those advantages so you don't get discouraged that the money isn't coming. So the advantages other than money for a YouTube channel is the ability to show off your work and eventually use that for a job interview. So when I interviewed at Intel, I put my YouTube channel like on my resume, and they watched my videos. So there are advantages, and they thought it was the coolest thing. You would have thought that I cured cancer. Okay. They were like, this is so much work. Do you even sleep? Like they are very impressed by people with YouTube channels. I don't know why. I never really thought about it. I just kind of threw on there. I was like, my work's on there. So focus on those advantages of networking, opportunities, meeting other YouTubers, getting cool comments from people, that kind of stuff. Focus on that if the money isn't coming. Because it took 2 years for me to make my first $1 on YouTube. It was a very long time. This is not a get rich quick side hustle, start it up, and with less than a year, you have $10,000. It's just not. It's a long game. So you just got to treat it like this is just my hobby, and it opens up doors that wouldn't open up if I didn't have a YouTube channel, and focus on that. So you're not getting like all upset that you don't have enough subscribers or you don't have enough money yet. Because that's the hardest part, is the first 2 years, in my opinion. Granted, I am in like almost 2.5 years. So I'm obviously going to feel like that's the hardest part, but maybe in 5 years, I'll say something else was harder.
I don't think so. I also think it was the hardest part, or hopefully not. I mean, that would mean there's something even harder to come.
Yeah. I'm gonna hope that was, well, everyone says like the first 100 subscribers is the hardest to get, and I agree with that. And I think the 1,000 was really hard too. Now I don't even like check the subscriber count because I've got a rhythm down, and I'm not stressing. So I feel better. I feel much better than a year or two ago.
What about a side hustle like consulting or freelancing? Do you have any advice for, getting your first gig or just how to make it work?
Yeah, I would say networking. And I don't mean like a lame networking. Everyone says, oh, network. I mean, like when you talk to somebody, tell them that you do business on the side. They should, like, your friends should know about it. Your people that you meet should know about it. Open yourself up. I like to force networking events, and a lot of people think that's horrific, but I like to go to club meetings or board meetings that are like for industry. So there's a board for everything. Okay. There's like over here, we have Society of American Military Engineers. I go to those meetings. Am I in the military? No, but I'm an engineer, so I'm allowed to go. So it's just like, and I'm American. So there's like, just go to those things that are like anything related in your industry. I'm also on like an industry advisory council for my college. So sometimes I'll chat with other business owners who have the time to be on these boards. And then I kind of pitch myself to them. And then they're like, we actually need somebody to set up this system. And I could do it. So it's like putting yourself out there and just making sure people around you know that you want to do work. And that's how I got the first couple jobs, was just chatting and going to board meetings and just saying, hey, I'm cool. I know how to do things. Hire me.
How has having a YouTube channel changed you, even maybe impacted the way you approach work?
Oh, I would say the biggest thing for me that YouTube's done is public speaking and confidence. So public speaking, I mean like almost just at work, just chatting with coworkers at work or giving a presentation at work or almost selling. I've learned to sell on YouTube. So by being on YouTube, you're selling yourself, you're having a personality, you're showcasing things, you're walking through tutorials and stuff. And I mean, if you film several videos every week, you're going to get better at public speaking and selling yourself and having conversations. It's just you filming yourself and you practice and you watch yourself and you give yourself feedback. Of course, you're going to get better at talking. So I noticed a huge shift where I was kind of quiet in meetings. I didn't really talk. Now I speak things, I share my screen, I go in depth, and it's almost like a YouTube video, but like they're live, So that has helped significantly because I've had a few people come back to me and be like, you are a different person, because I was pretty quiet on my first job. And then I started to get YouTubing and all that. And the confidence comes too, where I'm not afraid to lose my job necessarily because I know that YouTube's making me money. Granted, is it going to replace that? No, but I would be okay, and then it also opens up doors. So any of these companies that I work with would potentially hire me. So it's like, I know there's more options than there used to be for me. So the confidence of just being like, I don't need to work necessarily. I can go find another job very quickly, put your resume out with your YouTube link, like it'll get, so it's like the confidence in the public speaking that comes from filming so many videos, and entertaining and that kind of stuff. It's soft skills that like sprinkle throughout your work life. It's very weird. And it happens in like 1% inches. So you're not going to really notice until like it's been a couple of years and you're like, holy crap, I am way more confident and way more talkative than I used to be.
Now let's talk about your big career move. You went from working as a regional director in cost estimating to being a data science manager at Intel. Why and how did you decide to make this career move?
The career move was definitely strategic. I don't think I had it completely planned out, but when I was at my first job, so J. Dunn Construction, right, estimating 1, estimating 2, I knew that I wanted to do a little bit more with coding. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I thought, you know what, everything is going into coding. It was that whole like all these new software products were popping up, like Notion and all this stuff. And I just was like, you know what, I feel like it would be smart to get ahead of it and start learning coding, computer science. So I started with like VBA, which is like your Excel coding and macros. Okay. It's like it's like trash. You do not want to start with VBA. I do not recommend it, but it was applicable to like Excel spreadsheets, which I was working in a lot. And then I started taking SheCodes courses, which is front-end development. And I thought maybe I'll do that, but I didn't know the difference between the different languages. So I didn't know what front-end was. I didn't realize it was a website coding. So it had absolutely nothing to do with my job. But I just thought like, if I just keep learning more and more of these tools like Power Automate, Python, SQL, I just kept learning. I was always up to a course. If you asked me at any moment, you were like, what course are you taking? I could point on the screen and pull it up and show you exactly how far along I was. I was just very into keep learning. And I thought in the future that I could pivot into more of a data focused role or a computer science role. And that seemed kind of appealing to me. So I kind of had that planned out, but did I know exactly what company and where I was going to do it? No. But I figured if I posting on YouTube on coding stuff, that if I did want to go into coding one day, I couldn't say that I coded at work necessarily every day. I used a couple of my coding stuff at work, but I could point point them to the YouTube channel. So I could use the YouTube channel to pivot. And that's what I ended up doing. So I kind of had it planned out. Then when I was at that cost consultancy firm as the regional director, I was enjoying my job, but I didn't have time to do a lot of coding and that kind of stuff. It was more of a people management role. And my good friend went to Intel and then said, hey, I can get you an interview. And so I applied for a estimator role, right? I'm like, I'm in estimating. I better suck it up and just accept the fact that I'm stuck in estimating for the rest of my life. But I did enjoy estimating, don't get me wrong. But then when I went into the interview and I linked my YouTube channel to the interview or on the resume, they watched the resume and they talked to me about not being an estimator, which was completely caught me off guard because I did not even anticipate that. They were like, you look like you're into more data and coding based on your YouTube channel. Would you be interested in doing a new role that we haven't really developed here ever? And I thought, wow, they're gearing it towards me. Like, why didn't I think about that? So I'm like, genius. Absolutely. So I ended up kind of pivoting into that role and it was very undefined. My job is very undefined. It's not a role that's very common. It was in the estimating department though. So the key here is I stayed in the same industry, but switched jobs. So it's all semiconductor construction data that I'm handling, right? So you can make these pivots if you are in the same industry and you just kind of switch roles and you have something to back it up, like the YouTube channel. That was really the only thing I needed because otherwise they wouldn't have never known that I liked coding and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What do you think are some signs to look for that it's time to switch jobs?
So when it comes to switching jobs, you have to think what type of person or work life do you want? For me, I'm a very ambitious person. I want to climb that ladder as fast as I possibly can, right? Very different from maybe another person's approach of just trying to get a good job and just work and stay in their little bubble. I'm going for career growth. So my advice will be more towards ambitious engineers who are ready to climb the ladder. So when you realize that you are poing and you're doing the same thing every day, you may be very good at it and you may be getting lots of compliments, but that's not necessarily a good thing. You're getting compliments that you're the best at this particular task, red flag, because there's somebody out there that's better and you're not learning from them. You don't want to be number one for that long, So I'd say when it starts to plateau and let's say you've advanced as much as you can and you're plateauing and you realize, I'm not actually learning a lot, it's time to jump, in my personal opinion. And it kind of depends. If you love your manager and they have a plan for you at the company, don't jump. If you're doing great, then stay. But your manager has to have a plan for you. If your manager is not advocating for your growth and saying, I want to get you to the next grade level or position or whatever, and they don't have a plan for you and they're not communicating that to you, they don't have a plan if they're not saying it. So if your manager isn't advocating and not talking about plans with you, start there first. They seem hesitant, then look around, So you got to focus on how much you're learning, how much you're growing as a person, and how much work you're repeating. So you got to kind of be scrappy, in my opinion. So that's kind of at least my advice for people who want to just jumping and progressing in their career. I'm always looking out for when I stop learning. Right now in my current job, I'm learning a lot. I learn a lot of new stuff all the time. So for me, it's not an issue. And then the next step for me would be having those conversations with my manager and just making sure that we're on the same page. I'm trying to get to a director level. Thank you. Help me get there. Yeah. Being clear. Yeah.
What do you actually do as a data science manager and how does that fit into the overall business of Intel?
Okay, so my job's a little odd. Let's start with that because it's not defined, right? In this department, there really wasn't any data science people, right? This is a first job, so it's customizable, which I love because I have a bunch of really unique skills. I have people skills, I have selling skills, I have, computer science skills, I got engineering skills kind of mixed together. It's a very odd and estimated. So it's a very odd mix. So I tend to be the person who gets jobs or solving projects within Intel that nobody wants. They're like the projects people avoid, okay? They're like, take this Excel spreadsheet, this guy quit and we don't know how it works, but we really need somebody to figure out the math and how it all works and blah. Nobody wants to untangle that. Nobody wants to take that on and then move it into a database and do all this fancy stuff with it. Nobody wants that. It's very unknown and they almost don't even want to dive into it. They don't even know what they're asking you for. So I tend to get in the weeds of projects, and so my manager thinks of me like, okay, I have something something. It doesn't fit into any specific category. It's very important, but who do I give it to? Oh, we'll give it to Liz. She'll just take it and run with it. So it's a very nice job, but each project is completely different. So one project may include a lot of Excel. One project might be Python. Another project might be Angular and a front-end development focus. And I'll pair up with a couple of people, but I'm usually the lead, and then I'll run with it. So I'm almost just like this person that you just throw at projects that nobody really wants. But it's a good position to be in because it means you're valuable. Right. So as far as like, you can't even define the job. That's the hard part. Like, I can't tell you what I do because every project is completely different. It's a hard job to have because you have to keep learning.
Can you paint a picture of your workplace? So where are you working? What are you wearing? And what does a typical day look like?
Well, I do work from home. So I do sit in like my home office. I do go in every quarter. And when I used to work in construction at JEW Construction, I wear hard hat, boots, jeans, button-ups, kind of, that was more of the work wear that you would see. And I remember I would look at the guy's boots and be like, what brand is that? Like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, it has an American flag. And I'd be like, the boots with the American flag. So that I would get like the same brand everyone was wearing, or a lot of Carhartt. Like, I would see the tags that they had and then I would copy it. So there was strategy there, but now I don't wear boots and hard hats and stuff that often. So I tend to go for more like professional. I always dress as if I'm a freaking running the place, as if I'm a director. So I wear lots of like very long items, power items, button-ups are great, but I tend to go a little bit more formal than most just because, well, I'm also the only woman. Like, there's only a couple women in the department, and the majority of them also wear really nice clothing too. So I try to match them as well. So it's hard because the guys can kind of get away with just wearing jeans and stuff, but I can't wear skinny jeans or something. Well, I'm not gonna wear skinny jeans to work. So, you have to kind of match the other people around you. So I tend to do that. But there is a company, if any women engineers out there, they make yoga pants disguised as work pants. They're like really thick and they like have the fake business pant pocket called Beta Brand. I have every size and fit you could find because you walk in, you look like you're wearing business slacks, but like so stretchy, so nice. Just saying.
I need to get those.
I'm telling you, it was the best thing I've ever found.
I'd love to actually dive into that a little bit, into you being or working as a woman in engineering. Have you experienced any challenges related to that? And what were those? And what are your tips?
It's interesting because when you start working, you come out of college, right? You're working with people your age, right? And usually it's a pretty good mix. Like in my engineering class, yeah, it was majority male, but there was still like a good amount of female. You get into the workforce, females disappear. I don't know where they went. They're gone. And then you're working with a bunch of older people. So not only are you fighting your gender, you're fighting your age. So like you go out and you're like, okay, now I'm working with just a bunch of old men. Like there's just no sugarcoating. Like it's just a ton of men, and majority white men. So you kind of go from being like almost in this nice pool in college of diversity, and then you come in and you're like, whoa, this is very different than what I anticipated. For the challenges of being a woman engineer is you're also young, so you come across like inexperienced, young kind of chick, and I tend to see this a lot. Women always are taking the meeting notes. What is that? Why is that a thing? And they're always the ones scheduling like happy hours and events. Like the amount of times where I'm like, doing my work, and then I get an invite to do a team builder, and I see on the invites all women. Yeah, okay, I'm on the team builder committee because I'm a woman. Thank you. That's very kind. So I decline that crap because it's like, you're not asking, Joe or Josh or whoever, or Jake on the cubicle next to me to do those kind of weird asks, or to like hand out waffle tickets at a brunch, They didn't go to any of the men. They were like, Liz, can you pass out these waffle tickets? Well, I'm like, you're an assistant now. I'm not an engineer. I'm an assistant. And they mix those up. They're like, oh, you're a woman. You must be assistant. Let's put you on some committees and get you involved. It's like the weirdest thing. And the meeting notes I can't stand, because even as women, the women running the meeting notes, when they have to like take a sick day, they'll invite another woman to take the meeting notes. I'm like, guys, can we stop doing this? So those are the things to watch out for, is like you'll tend to be seen more as an assistant and asked to do assistant type tasks and not engineering tasks. And I just have to remind myself, you don't have to be so nice that you don't decline it, because Jake is declining those invites. That's why they're not asking him. So decline them. Like, you got to be treated like your coworkers. So those are like some of the bigger ones. Obviously, there's going to be some like other weird stuff, dynamics going on. I've definitely had those one-off calls where they'll like say something like mildly sexual, and I'm like, I don't think that's a very appropriate thing to say. But for the most part, the men are your biggest advocators. I've met some of my biggest advocates in my career development have been men. And so you can't just like blame them completely, because there's a lot of men who are like, you're a badass, you go, like you're the best one here, you need to tell them. There are some really good male advocates who are your coworkers who will help stand you up and point out that kind of discriminatory kind of crap. So, there's some challenges, but there's definitely people there who are rooting for you.
Yeah, I'm with you on the meeting notes. I completely refuse to take meeting notes. If someone asks like, who's going to take meeting notes? And then they all look at me and I'm like,
is that movie their personal scribes? And it's every time. And you know what? They will never notice it. Until I said something, like my manager was like, what? I'm like, no, it's every time. It's a woman. We only have like 4 women in the entire department. Like, it should be very obvious out of the 60 people that you're only having, you're switching between all the women. So it's a challenge. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. But it's just something that's so annoying, and it just makes you realize that there still is lingering stuff around.
Yeah. And I think it's just like a representation of a lot of things that kind of get loaded on you that are not getting loaded onto the men.
Yeah.
It's just
so
like
tiny. Yes, they add up. It's so tiny. And so they're like, oh, you take meeting notes. Oh, you hand out the waffle tickets. Oh, you do the team builder. Oh, can you schedule the social happy hour? Oh, can you design this weird logo for this thing? Oh, can you do the newsletter? It's just like anything that's designed traditionally pretty design or assistant like tasks, they just get thrown at you while, your coworker just gets to do his job and his job only. And then it's like almost unfair because I just spent all this time doing this extra stuff and now they're like almost at an advantage because they don't have any of that kind of stuff. So it adds up over time, and that's the problem, because it's such a tiny of an ask that you don't want to be a total jerk and be like, no, find someone else to hand out the waffle tickets. It just adds up slow and slow and slow. And then over years, hours of work, hours and hours and hours of work.
Yeah. We had a work party where I was standing in a group of women and we were like, there's no table set up by the guys that organized this. Should we pull up a table? And then we were like, no, let's watch and see what happens. And then we just stood there. We were like, okay, I guess they're like waiting for a table to appear out of thin air, which didn't happen because we didn't do it. And
love it. That's you got to band together.
You literally have to like kind of cooperate to not do that shit so that,
exactly. 100. I'm very open about it. Yeah. Super open about it. And sometimes I'll be like, even to like my coworker, I'll be like, hey, dude. And she's a chick. And I'll be like, why did you have this other chick do the meeting notes? Give it to a dude. I'll call it out. I'm like, we got to be our own advocates, guys.
What are some of your favorite and least favorite parts of your job as a data science manager?
The autonomy that I get. And I mean, I could just be manager dependent, right? Because every manager has a different working style. But for being a data science manager, at least in my department, because it's more of a vague role and you're working with data and that kind of stuff, you tend to get a little bit more autonomy on how to do your job. So my boss gives me so much space and he's so supportive and he goes, you're the lead, do what you need to do, learn what you need to learn. I think the thing that sucks the most, and I think a lot of people relate to this, is the hardness of getting people, or the struggle of getting people to change. Anytime I want to bring in a new product or bring in a new software application or something like that, or have a new idea, it's changing the company slightly in little minute ways, and coworkers, they don't want it. There's a template for that, blah, blah, blah. We have a standard operating procedure for that. That's not what we do. That's not how we've done it in the past. And that kind of stuff, especially when you're in a tech role and trying to advocate for different tech tools or different things that you think will help, it's very frustrating, right? Because you come up with these great ideas, you did the research, blah, and then they just don't want to use it, just because it's not change. But there's certain people are change makers, right? They stir things up. I'm one of those people. You're not hiring me to just do the same old thing over and over again. Like I'm going to mix things up. I'm going to cause a little bit of an issue, some problems, that kind of stuff. So I just have to remember that you can have ideas and you can pitching them. Just because people aren't taking them and changing the way they do things every single time, you'll get one win out of every 10. So you just have to keep pitching ideas and don't let it discourage you. So that's the two things. I love the autonomy of the work, but I also, being in a data role, you have a lot of influence on software and technology, and not everybody wants to change.
Yeah. What is one misconception about your job or your industry that most people get wrong?
I would say a lot of people people think when we get technical degrees, like an engineering degree, that you should know everything, that you learn everything that you need to learn in college and you don't really need anything after. It's like so wrong. You learn all this stuff in college and it's really hard stuff, don't get me wrong, but I use like maybe 1% of what I learned. I'm not pulling out a psychrometric chart and looking at the humidity filters and other crap and the dry bulb versus wet bulb temperatures that I dove into in a thermodynamics course. We're not using that. So a lot of people are like, oh, you have an engineering degree, you should like know everything and that's all you need to know. But it's like, I've actually learned way more outside of college than I did in college. So you learn a lot on the job. That's why I'm like, people just get the degree and you'll be fine. It's never as hard as college. College is way harder than what I do now. So I'm like, get the degree, get the little certificate, and then you can learn the rest later. So a lot of people are like, I could never do engineering. I'm like, all you have to do is get that degree. You get that piece of paper, you'll be fine.
So true. You can literally like never do the things you hate again. You can stop that doesn't need them.
You didn't like fluid mechanics? You can completely avoid that industry.
What advice would you give someone looking for their first job in your industry?
Oh, looking for the first job?
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be kind of like not advice you're ever going to get. When preparing for a job, I know you were saying kind of looking, but preparing for a job, we talk about looking, right? Looking, you want to focus on industry and manager. If you focus on those two things, you'll be fine. When it comes to preparing for a job, you can't really anticipate what technology they're going to use, right? So my best advice, I know this is going to sound weird, is to focus on your typing speed. I know you're like, what is like, that has nothing to do with anything. No, it is the biggest impact that you can have on your efficiency and like fastness and quickness in a way, because I started working and in engineering school, everything was like handwritten. You're doing equations, blah. So I didn't really like type a lot. In the industry now, I type every day. I'm typing all day, every day. So what I thought was I took a typing test like my first day at work because I noticed freaking fast typers. And I'm like over here pecking away like 28 words per minute. And so I took like speed typing tests and got it up to 80 words per minute. And that was like the number one best thing I've ever done for my career was to do typing tests. You know, it just doesn't make any sense, but it's a huge impact. So if you don't know the technology and you don't know what to study and you're kind of prepping for your first day, just get really, really fast at typing and using a computer, like all the hotkeys and stuff. So, and then you'll be pretty good from there because then you can learn the software and all that and the day-to-day job stuff later. But again, depends. If you're not on a computer all day and you're in the fab and you're, you know, more hands-on, then don't take that advice.
Yeah, I've never heard that advice, but it makes sense.
I know. I was saying, I was like, it's kind of a weird advice, but honestly, I wish somebody would have told me to work on my typing skills. You know, it's a weird one. A lot of people take it for granted too. Some people are good at typers, but if you can get your typing speed up, that just makes everything faster. Emails, writing up memos, just everything.
What are some other industries where you could work as a data science manager?
Other industries, I feel like I could work anywhere because my job is so broad. I mean, think about it. If you go into data science or a data role or data engineer or anything like that, it's just the only thing that's changing is the type of data. Whether it's construction data or data on random products or data about the weather, I don't care. It's all analyzed the same. It's all math and cleaning data and making cool tools and informing decision making. Everyone uses data to make decisions. So any company needs a data science manager, somebody who's looking at the data to help inform decisions. Some people don't use data to inform decisions, but it's always good to at least have that. So that's why I kind of like the fact that I transitioned, because I don't have to just stay in the construction semiconductor industry.
Yeah, it's quite smart. Like your first move within the same industry, but to a quite different job. And then from there you could go to the same
exactly.
job else.
Well, and there's a book called Pivot. I haven't read it, but I read the summary, and that's basically what she says in the book. But it's one that I want to read, and I think I basically took her advice without reading the book. Because I think that was, when I read the summary, it was like, yes, move within the industry and then switch. And there was a couple other ones where you could move to the job you want and then switch to the other industry. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's great advice, and no one teaches you about like smart career moves. These not in university or even at work.
Yeah, smart career moves. I mean, you can shave 10 years off your career by a good, like, strategic career move.
I recently heard the word career capital used for like, describing not just like, you know, the skills you learn, but also just being in a profession or like having knowledge, like expertise, experiences, everything combined that can kind of transfer to a lot of different industries and jobs in case your industry dies out or whatever, versus too specific in something that doesn't.
Yeah. I think they talk, I've read in a book, I think they're called like transferable skills. So any soft skills, transferable, right? Selling, you sell in every job. You sell yourself, you sell products, you convince people to use a certain software tool, right? So selling is one of those, or people skills, which you develop through YouTube. you talking, public speaking, giving a presentation. I mean, it doesn't matter what the presentation's about. That's a skill that can transfer from one industry to another. So that's why I kind of like that kind of stuff. And always learning. So some of the technical stuff, the software, I think it's good to like touch everything, but you don't really have to like know it all before you start a job. That's just stuff that it's so dependent on what job you're in. Like Intel happens to be a Microsoft heavy user. So we use a lot of Microsoft products, where if I went to Google, I would be so behind because I've been on a Microsoft platform for like 4 years. So it's really dependent even on what company you're at.
But then you know how to learn. So
exactly. The ability to learn quickly, very important.
Yeah. I'd love to transfer a little bit to your personal life in future. Not too personal, but just a little bit more. So are there any ways in which being an engineer has impacted your personal life or the way that you think about things or even what you notice?
Yeah. Well, so when I was younger, I really thought I was like a dumb person. Like I genuinely, growing up, I never really had like a lot of common sense, or like I was never really good at regurgitating information. And I was just missing a lot of stuff. And you're developing, you're growing, you're coming out of like adolescence. And I just thought I was like a dumb person. Like I was slow to learn things. I'd be in math class and be like, I'm slow. And when I challenged myself to go get an engineering degree and then I got the degree, it's like a badge of like, look, I actually am a smart person. So even if I feel dumb, I can still like point at something and be like, see that degree? That means I'm not dumb. So anytime I get insecure, I just remember I'm an engineer. I got an engineering degree. I was #1 in my class. So that to me is like almost something to fall back on. And that's how it's impacted me the most, like mentally. So when I get in a meeting and a guy tries to make me feel stupid and, I ask a question that's completely valid and they're like, this has nothing to do with that. And I feel all insecure and like, I must be dumb. And then I think, no, you have a degree. You are qualified. Now, sometimes that can go a little too far because you're too dependent. Like if someone took away my degree, I'd be devastated. Like my identity, So you don't want to be too much on it. And that's why I'm reading actually a really good book called The Good Enough Job. And it's all about disassociating your identity from your work, because obviously I take a lot of pride in engineering and stuff. And if somebody took that away, I would go through an identity crisis. So that means you should be developing, cooking skills and other skills that like if one of them went away, you wouldn't be like shattered as a human. But I would say that's the biggest impact of having the degree, just knowing that you can solve problems and that you're a smart human. But just because you have a degree though, doesn't necessarily mean that you are smart. Because there's a lot of people who have engineering degrees who I've looked at and I'm like, I don't know about you. Not the sharpest person I've ever met. So it doesn't automatically make you smart. So keep that in mind. That's another like misconception, I think. Anytime I say I have a mechanical engineering degree, they think I'm smart. And I'm like, you know what? I could be very dumb. You don't know that. I know I'm smart, but like you can't be impressed because you don't know.
That's true. What are your career goals going forward? Where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years?
In 5 years, I hope that I would be running my own company, right? So I have my own company and I have YouTube's wrapped in it and consulting and all that. And I would love to just kind of run with it. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get there in 5 years or if that's after 5 years and then I quit my job and then I go run after it. I have two kind of scenarios in my mind. One, I've quit my job and I've taken YouTube and all that and the consulting all full time. The other side is like, what if I just develop in my career and then that stays a side hustle forever and it just slowly gets bigger, and then I don't put so much pressure on it because my day-to-day job pays the bill. So if I miss a YouTube upload, it's not the end of the world. It's my livelihood isn't attached to it. So I'm kind of toying with those two ideas because I love like the career moves. I love helping run a company when it's not my company, because you can take more risks. You're willing to take a little bit more risks because at the end of the day, it's like if you make a bad decision, they can just fire you and you could go on and do something else. You can't at your own company, you make a risk and you blow it and you're bankrupt. It's like you have to start a new company. And like, I don't know, to me, I'm like, I kind of like having the separation. So I'm toying with both ideas. The plan is like, I'll be higher up at Intel and running YouTube or just fully running YouTube.
And would that company, if you go full time on it, would that be also YouTube consulting or is there anything else that you're kind of excited of doing?
I would love to like run the YouTube channel and use it to generate money using sponsorship and affiliate and then use that bucket of money to hire my friends and build cool software products. That would be an ideal world where I would rent out a space and then I would free up my friends by paying them their salary. Be like, look, you could either work at your 9-to-5 job, or you can come hang out in a YouTube studio with 3D printers and stuff and just build shit with me and then see if we can come up with a product. Like, that would be really fun. So that's kind of my envisioning of what I would do if I was full-time in YouTube. I'd be like, use YouTube to pay the bills and then run kind of a more of a maker space, think space that generates some ideas, and then we run with it, launch it. If it's terrible, it's terrible. If not, we sell cool products. That would be just ideal. And I just want to work with smart people and my friends and have fun.
That sounds so awesome.
I know, right? Wouldn't you want to do that? I just want to free up everyone that I like and just put them all in a room, like smart people, all my smart friends, put them in a room, and I just want to see what kind of ideas come out of it and see if we can build something cool and just do that for life. I don't need to be working at someone else's company and fixing their problems. I like the creative idea of having just a space, just do whatever you want. And there's no pressure because the YouTube would be paying for it potentially.
Yeah, I might steal your vision, honestly. Like,
we can all have a vision. Yeah. We need more of that. I'd come work for you.
Let's see. Let's see who hires who.
Yeah, it's a race.
Exactly. I'd love to end with some rapid fire questions if you're up for it.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your absolute favorite book?
Okay, this one is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Okay, she's a queen. You can't dethrone her. It's too good. It's also like in my soul because it was the first book I read after my dad passed. And so it's like ingrained into me. So maybe it affected me more than others. So that's my number one favorite book if you want just like a good read. Though my favorite finance book is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. So if you just want something actionable and help you whip up your life, then that's the book.
I just listened to that book this week, actually.
It's so good.
It is. What surprised you the most about starting your business or your YouTube channel or both?
I think it was the surprise that there's other benefits besides money. Because I was kind of in it for, like maybe I can make some money. And the money never came. Oh, it did come, but it didn't come for a while. So when I say never, I mean the first 2 years or when I thought it would come. So the advantages of just it being a personal brand, you can use it on your resume, networking, opportunities, working with brands, that kind of stuff, or meeting other YouTubers, like meeting you. That was the thing that shocked me the most.
What is a stereotype about engineers that you think is not true?
Everyone says engineers are good at math. Not all engineers are good at math. And it really depends on what type of math too. Like there's some heat transfer math that's really intense and that I was very good at, but I can't do like off the top of my head random this plus this math. So it's give and take. Not every engineer is good at math.
And which project, be it big or small, have you thought about doing but haven't started yet?
I have it's all book related. I've always wanted to write a book. Obviously, I'm going to write a productivity business book.
Obviously.
Because I've read like hundreds of them at this point. So I'm ready for that moment. And I've already come up with a name. I have a list of names and I have a couple of my favorite. So I'm trying to find like a good catchy name and then write it. I don't think I'm there yet. I need it's just watching Ali Abdaal and his book struggle. I'm like, this is a 2-year process, like full time. I'm going to wait. Until I have some more free time. But I really want to do that, a productivity, self-help, business book. And I also want to write a memoir. That one's huge in my mind. I had a really non-traditional upbringing and a lot of challenges in life with financial issues and just moving around a lot and that kind of stuff that I would love to just unpack into a book. It would be almost like therapeutic for me. And I really want to write a textbook. For some reason in my mind, I'm like, I have to write a textbook because I love textbooks. When I was in college, it was my favorite part. I would love buying the textbooks and then I would rate which ones were the best. So I really want to write a textbook. I have no idea what I would do it. Maybe on like construction or something. But it would be fun. I have lots of pictures and it's very nonfiction. So I feel like I would enjoy it.
Last question. And I absolutely love to ask this question. If you had to totally abandon your current engineering career and start a completely different career, what would you do?
Okay. Starting a new, completely different career. These are the careers that I thought about the most and genuinely make me question what I'm doing with my life every now and then. So I would love to go into physics, specifically astrophysics. That would be very cool. I love space. I feel like that would be something, and it's something I haven't really delved into much. I just know that when I took my couple of physics courses, I was like in love with it. But I thought, who's going to pay me to do that? Or math. I always wanted to like prove one of those theorems, but I'd have to dedicate my life to it. And I was like, oh, again, money. The problem with some of these is like I needed money exactly when I got out of college. I couldn't like wait, or my parents they didn't have money. So it's not like they're going to subsidize me going and getting my PhD in mathematics. Like it's just, these were unrealistic. But I sometimes think about it and I'm like, I should go go do it. So physics, math, chemistry, I really loved as well. The only reason I didn't go into chemistry is because I was worried that it was all research assistants and I didn't want to be like measuring things for the rest of my life. And that could be a total miscalculation on my part. But again, I was going straight for money. That's why I did engineering. You know, it is what it is. But I think about, I always wanted to go into science and that kind of stuff. So I really wish I would have maybe dabbled a little bit more into the hard sciences like physics, math, or biology or chemistry or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Liz, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being on the Fresh Engineer podcast. For the people,
I know, I'm so excited.
Yeah. So for the people that want to learn more about you or connect with you or check out your channel after watching this, where should they go?
They can go and search into YouTube and type in Liz and then ROWE, which is Rao, Liz Rao. And then I should be the first one that pops up and you can check out some software stuff, see my videos there. So that's kind of like, that's where I post and put the most of my energy into is the YouTube. So I like it. And then you've got a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. And you also have classes on.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Skillshare courses, classes. And then I got the website. The website kind of just like sends you everywhere. I think it's just liz.org because my channel was originally called It's Just Liz because it's literally just me. I thought it made sense at the time, but I switched it to my name now.
Yeah. We'll link all of that down below as well. Yeah. So thanks again for being here. Are you as mind blown as me? I just love how Liz sees herself in complete control of her career, which I think we can all take some inspiration from. Her path shows that your engineering major does not define your career as long as you're willing to learn and teach yourself new things. And that having a YouTube channel can even help your engineering career. And I might be biased, but I also think that starting a YouTube channel is the single best thing I've ever done for my engineering career. Maybe besides studying engineering, because it has given me so much confidence, the ability to teach myself new things, and connections with amazing people like Liz. So thank you again, Liz Rowe, for coming onto the show and sharing your story. And if you enjoyed this interview with her, you should obviously check out her channel. She has lots of great videos about different ways you can learn how to code, and one of my all-time favorite videos is her video on the fake semester technique, which can help you to teach yourself new things next to your job, even after you've left engineering school and you're lacking the learning structure of a semester. You can find the show notes for this episode on freshengineer.io/podcast/10, including links to everything we talked about today. This was the last interview for this season of the Fresh Engineer podcast, but I do have a special season recap episode coming up for anyone who wants to get some personal insights on the show. I'm going to share my favorite lessons this season, reflect on what it was like to start the podcast, and share what I have planned next for this show. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts so you don't miss this special season recap episode. I'm also now taking applications for the second season, so if you're an engineer and you want to be on the show, go to freshengineer.io/podcast/apply and answer a few questions about yourself, and then we'll hopefully talk soon. Thanks for tuning into the Fresh Engineer podcast, where fresh engineers share their stories.